St. Mary's Hospital in Lagos was once a beacon of hope and healing. Known for its excellent care and advanced facilities, it was the pride of the community. But recently, a dark cloud seemed to hang over it. One by one, the hospital staff began to disappear without a trace. Nurses, doctors, and even janitors vanished, leaving the hospital in chaos. The police were frequently at the hospital, questioning Dr. Adewale and his remaining staff. Dr. Adewale, we need to know if there's anything unusual you've noticed, one officer asked during a routine interview. No, officer. Everything seemed normal until the disappearances started, Dr. Adewale replied, frustration evident in his voice. His staff were also pulled into these interviews, adding to the growing tension and fear within the hospital. Rumors spread like wildfire through the town, with whispers of demonic activity and curses. The once thriving hospital became a shadow of its former self, as patients and their families avoided it out of fear. Desperate to find out what was happening, Dr. Adewale called a meeting with the remaining staff. I know these are frightening times, he said, addressing the anxious faces before him. But we must stay vigilant and support each other. Please, be careful and report anything suspicious immediately. Your safety is our top priority. One evening, after another exhausting day of dealing with the police and the dwindling number of patients, Dr. Adewale decided to take a walk to clear his mind. He found himself wandering towards the boys' quarters where his personal driver, Mr. Okoro, lived. As he approached, he noticed something strange. The door was slightly ajar, and inside, he saw a photograph of Mr. Okoro, dressed in expensive clothes, standing in front of a luxurious mansion. Next to the photograph was an identity card with a different name, Chinedu Okafo. Dr. Adewale's curiosity was piqued. Deciding to keep this discovery to himself, Dr. Adewale hired a private investigator to look into Mr. Okoro's past. He chose not to tell his wife, wanting to be sure of the facts first. The next day, Dr. Adewale decided to test Mr. Okoro without revealing what he had seen. Mr. Okoro, can I have a word with you? Dr. Adewale asked, trying to keep his tone casual. Of course, sir, Mr. Okoro replied, though there was a hint of nervousness in his voice. I was in your room yesterday looking for you and I noticed your room was unkempt. Don't you think it could be rather dangerous for you as anyone could sneak it and steal anything? Dr. Adewale said, watching for any reaction. Oh, I didn't know about that. I guess I forgot to lock the door. It won't happen again. Mr. Okoro's response was calm and collected. Thank you, sir. I appreciate the correction. Mr. Okoro said as he opened car. He was waiting to take Matthew, Dr. Adewale's 11-year-old son, to his boarding school as they have resumed session. Dr. Adewale observed Mr. Okoro closely, but his demeanor remained steady. Internally, Dr. Adewale began to doubt his suspicions, thinking perhaps he had made a mistake about the identity card. The news of people disappearing from his hospital did not stop. The topic was the most consistent on social media and on daily news. Soon patients ceased from visiting his establishment as they also feared for their wife. Dr. Adewale sat down with the bottle of liquor drowned in his own sadness. Moments later he received a call. It was from the private investigator he had hired. I am 5 minutes away from your home, please look for a private room where we can discuss. I have something urgent to discuss. Moments later he arrived and Dr. Adewale could not wait to hear what had to spill out. It turned out that the investigator's findings were shocking. Mr. Okoro was not who he seemed. He was actually a military man who dived into business and got wealthy. He had several businesses that involved several trucks and trailers. He was listed as one of the most celebrated positive influencers and philanthropists of his local community. Dr. Adewale picked up the picture. The investigator handed over to him. He could believe his eyes. It was Mr. Okoro in a car, with kid and a woman all looking very happy in a selfie. He also saw another picture where he was handed an award. But the most startling revelation was about his son. Years ago, Mr. Okoro's son had been rushed to this hospital in an emergency. Unable to pay the deposit, Mr. Okoro had watched helplessly as his son died because the hospital refused to treat him, the investigator said. Now at this time, Dr. Adewole's drink had cleared out from his eyes. But this does not mean he is somehow tied to any unfortunate incident happening in the hospital, the investigator added. Dr. Adewole and the investigator were initially stunned by Mr. Okoro's true identity and his tragic past. They did not immediately jump to the conclusion that he was behind the kidnappings. However, their suspicions grew when they reviewed the hospital's records from their software inventory. They discovered that all the missing staff members had been on duty the day Mr. Okoro's son died and had attended to him. Now it was clear without doubt who was behind all what was happening. The morning of the day the investigator revealed this information, Mr. Okoro had taken Dr. Adewole's son to boarding school. Immediately, Dr. Adewole picked up his phone to call the driver, but his phone was unreachable. When the investigator also tried to reach him, his phone was unavailable. Watch out for part 2.